Em, Oke, ETH. Coba kita cek ya chartnya ETH sekarang. Oke, ini chartnya. Ya, jadi kita udah bilang guys ya. Nih, gue asal gambar ya, jangan diinin. Nah, ya gue udah bilang ya. Jadi ada potensi sekedar retest doang dan drop guys. Ya, jadi mana tadi yang bilang market pump? Gue, ya. Ya, jadi it ya dari range sekarang menurut gua this is still an potential ABC correction ke bawah. Ini support terdekatnya dia di 4.200-an. Lu bisa cek nih di bawah sini. 4.200 sampai 4.263 ya. Um, ini currently resistance zone ya, ya di sebelah sini. Ya di range sebelah sini ya. Dan dia sekarang lagi ada di critical zone ya, gue bilang ya. Again guys, ini dia hit 0,618. Gua rasa buat Ethereum to be bullish, dia harus nge-break structure ya. Jadi breakout dari sini, maka ini bullish guys buat Ethereum ya. Karena kita tarikin, ya ini structure overallnya ini bearish guys. Jadi nggak bisa yang bearish kita paksa bilang bullish, nggak bisa kayak gitu guys ya. Ini lo tarikin kayak gini. Dan sekarang kan lagi di sini. Ya, ini buat yang belajar trend coding, buat yang belajar technical. Gimana caranya biar ini jadi bullish guys? Coba ini kan high. Coba ya, kita kasih sedikit tips and trick ya buat teman-teman ya. Ini kan atas ini high, sebelah sini kan low. Ya ini kan bawah sini, ini lower low kan. Ya buat dia breakout ke atas ini ya dia harus ngebentuk kayak gini lah. Dia harus kayak gini guys. Baru ini bullish kan. Ya. Gitu guys ya buat overall crypto market. Jadi menurut gua per hari ini dia it ya atau bahkan beberapa chart itu perlu breakout ke atas ini buat in order to be bullish. Kalau dia nggak berhasil breakout, maka ini bearish guys menurut gua ya. Dan menurut gua just do nothing sih for now ya. Just do nothing. Buat Ethereum kayak gitu. Kita cek dari daily time frame. Tadi udah short term ya, sekarang di daily-nya. Daily time frame ini nunjukin ya ini bisa mungkin ya, mungkin kalau lu asal tarik bisa ya. Ini jadi trend line. Sorry dari sini ke sini. Jadi bisa aja dia testing ke bawah sini atau enggak lu tarikin meski ini terlalu ketat tapi ini bisa juga. Gue coba buka oscillator dulu ya. Sabar. Ya, secara oscillator ini could be forming a divergence guys ya. Nah, oke nggak jadi guys. Ini nggak ada divergence sama sekali. Ya. Dan menurut gua dari range sekarang, ya it's quite wise to wait and see sih guys ya. Selama dia, pokoknya Ethereum ini harus break ke atas ini guys, baru jadi bullish ya kalau lu trading. Nah, kalau dia breakout di bawah sini, dia turun lebih dalam. Ya kita hitung aja ini wave 1, 2. Nah, ini 3-nya baru dia drop, 4, 5. 5-nya tuh dalam guys. Ya, sekitar 3.700-an kayak gitu ya kurang lebih ya. Dari gue pribadi ngeliatnya kayak gitu. Dari overall crypto market. Bukannya lu bilang uang lu lebih banyak dari forex. Kenapa nggak buka kelas forex? Siapa bilang nggak akan buka? Nanti kita tambahin di trade with Sully justru pas bear market kita tambahin. Jadi pada saat bear market kita kerjanya nggak cuma nge-short, tapi kita tuh main prop firm. Kita bakal teach ke teman-teman. Gue pribadi bakalan share ke teman-teman gimana caranya dapat kredit uang $100.000 atau berapa ribu dolar buat di tradingin. Ini kan di forex atau commodities. Sorry, gue nggak main forex sih, bener sih. Gue commodities ya. Gue main di gold ya. Gitu ya guys. Lu percaya sama trader full margin bisa kayak gak? Enggak guys. Apaan? Gini, kalau tradernya full margin, dia tuh ada limitnya guys. Gue kasih tau ya. Gue pernah ketemu beberapa trader yang lu bisa pisahin ya. Flipper sama trader itu oke lah ya. Can they make money for a living? Oke, bisa. Mungkin ngasilin 100 juta per bulan bisa. Tapi kalau ngasilin above itu, menurut gue udah lumayan susah. Kenapa? Karena ada limitasi capitalnya guys. Buat lu all in tuh nggak bisa. Misal, lu trading pakai modal 10 dolar. Ya lu bisa pencet-pencet. Ya lu bisa abisin mungkin 10 dolar ya. Mungkin 3.000 orang yang nonton sini bisa kayak gitu. Tapi kalau sekarang gue kasih lu misal 100 juta, lu bisa gak all in? Coba. Belum tentu. Karena mental capacity-nya itu beda. Ngerti gak sih? Jadi orang yang punya 10 dolar sama 10.000 dolar, lu disuruh full margin, 10 dolar mungkin bisa, tapi 10.000 dolar belum tentu bisa. Nah itu masalah di situ. Ngerti gak sih? Dan biasanya, ini gua kasih tahu biasanya, orang-orang yang full margin, yang ngajak kalian full margin, itu sales broker, itu IB namanya, introduction broker. Mereka tuh nge-refer orang biar dapat komisi. Kan kalau kalian trading di MetaTrader kan ada lot size ya kan? Nah itu lot size-nya, satu lot itu mereka dapat berapa dolar gitu. Ada yang kayak gitu ya. Makanya kalian diajak sama mereka buat full margin biar volume banyak lah. Ya kan? Gitu guys. Jadi apakah orang yang full margin itu bisa kaya? Tergantung ya, relatif ya. Kaya kalian tuh berapa? Kayak gue tuh HNY itu kaya lah, oke lah. High net worth individual kan, 1 juta dolar ke atas kan. Gak buka copy trade. Oke, ini good question. Gini guys, copy trade itu sangat jarang pernah works di Indonesia. Kenapa? Kita cek ya dari sejarah ya. Di Indo tuh ada satu kalau kalian tahu ya, ini gue nggak usah sebut namanya, tapi kalau kalian tahu itu dia dulu pernah works ya. Tapi setelah 3 tahun kan dia tutup. Kenapa? Karena ada beban guys. Ya jadi manage uang orang itu nggak segampang itu. Bahkan kayak BlackRock dan sebagainya pun nggak segampang itu guys. Kenapa? Karena ketika aumnya udah besar, orang tuh susah guys ngelola duit orang tuh nggak segampang itu. Lebih enak ngelola duit sendiri. Buat yang trader beneran harusnya relate. Gue lebih baik lost duit 100 juta gue sendiri daripada lost duit orang 100 juta. Karena reputasi guys, reputasi itu lebih penting daripada duit kan. Kayak gitu guys ya. Excel beli fisik aja. Ya beli Troy ya, kita beli Troy ya. Iya guys, jadi reputasi gini, kalau gue hilangin duit kalian sekarang juga, reputasi gue hilang itu cuma sekali guys seumur hidup. Gue nggak bisa revive-in balik reputasi gue. Gini, seandainya ya, gue tradingin duit kalian, terusnya habis duit kalian ya. Seandainya, amit-amit, ya, duit kalian habis. Terusnya lu udah benci sama gue, terusnya gue ganti balik ruginya kalian pun. Misal lu rugi, di sini ada yang misal nih ya, Edward nih ya, Edward misal rugi 10 juta, gue ganti pun 10 juta, lu tetap perasaan disbelief lu tuh tetap nggak ada sama gue. Kenapa? Karena udah sempet pernah hilang. Gitu. So, tanggapan lu tentang trader yang loss 2,5 M saat news kemarin. Gue nggak tahu ya itu siapa ya. Tapi news trading itu wajar sih. Ya, kalau lu bisa loss segitu banyak, lu juga bisa profit segitu banyak ya. Jadi itu wajar. Dan menurut gue, ya kalau lu 2,5 M ya, itu lu mau gimana caranya? Karena beberapa broker, MetaTrader itu aja itu nggak nge-allow buat kalian full margin guys. Ada yang nge-disallow, ada yang tiba-tiba leverage-nya diturunin jadi 130, bisa kayak gitu guys. Andrew Tate rugi, ya dia kemarin nge-short Yeezy ya, tokennya Kanye West, kena liquid 700.000 ya kalau nggak salah ya. Pegang emas fisik enggak buat sekarang. Tapi XAUT pegang. Nah, XAUT pegang. Ajarin Elliott Wave di modul soon ya. Jadi kita baru aja partner up sama salah satu. Jadi ini ya, kalau kalian tahu, Elliott Wave tuh ada sertifikasinya guys. Namanya CEWA. Nih, ini coba buka screen gue deh. Jadi Elliott Wave International ya. Nah, kita ada orang yang ngajarin ke kalian. Ya dia punya sertifikasi di Indonesia itu CEWA Strip M guys. Jadi itu master ya. Elliott Wave-nya itu udah kelasnya kelas master. Nah ini harusnya ya doain lah ya. Dia bakal ngajarin kalian tentang Elliott Wave-nya gitu ya. Nah jadi ada guys, sertifikasi itu ada. Ya bahkan trader pun ada ya, technical analysis ya. Ini, nah tuh di SSPM ya, Certified Technical Analyst ya. Ini di Indonesia tuh ada, bisa guys, dari pemerintahan langsung ya. Apakah spot trading bisa kaya? Bisa. Bisa. Justru most people tuh kaya dari spot trading. Futures tuh buat iseng-iseng aja. Pas market drop kayak gini kita iseng-iseng ambil sedikit, itu kan bisa. Discount member. Oke, kita lihat nanti ya. XRP gimana Sol? Oke, kita cek chartnya XRP USDT. Oke, ini chartnya XRP. Kita kemarin sebenarnya di live member ada gambar. Nah, kayak gini ya. Jadi XRP itu sekarang lagi ada di support zone yang cukup kuat gue rasa. Dan gue rasa ini bisa jadi salah satu alt yang bertolak belakang guys geraknya. Ini chartnya channeling kayak gini. Ya kurang lebih, dan menurut gua kalau dia berhasil breakout maka range sebelah sini akan ditembusin. Jadi kalau tarikin buy wave ini mungkin ya kayak gini 1 2, jadinya 3-nya 3 4 5, mungkin bisa kayak gini atau enggak ya bisa kayak gitu sih guys ya skenario nya ya. Jadi cukup range di sebelah sini dipertahankan, then this is going to go up ya menurut gua ya. Ya, XRP ya. Target price pertama di 2,96 guys. 1,8% tuh buat yang suka scalping ke atas-atas sedikit ya. Kayak gitu ya. Jadi buat yang ngerasa, sabar. Oke, ternyata ya, Sui gimana? Coba kita cek ya, Sui. Dari chart sekarang. Sui itu kurang lebih sama guys. Ini lu cek ya, chartnya tuh sama kayak XRP guys. Jadi most chart.
Ini emang jatuh tadi? Itu jatuh apa?
Tunjangan kehormatan kan, berarti kehormatannya pakai tunjangan dong ya. Berarti kita nggak harus hormat dulu lagi.
Yang dikatakan kenaikan tunjangan itu dari
Hello guys, so welcome back.
완전히 제가 완전
Hi, I'm Howard Mark.
Nggak masuk di plan.
Bagas
September voting for a rate cut or not.
Well, there's two different things going on here, and I think we have to keep referring to the two different things. One is the president's ability to fire a sitting Fed governor and the reason he has for it, and the other, ultimately, is the allegations of mortgage fraud. We still don't have an official investigation open up on that. We still haven't had an official denial from the governor, Lisa Cook. Some people might have sympathy with the fact that there still isn't an investigation. But ultimately, you'd have to think that if the evidence was there at some point in the next few weeks, she's going to present that internally to the Fed chair. And if she isn't able to do that, do we end up in the same situation that we were in a number of years ago when some Fed officials had to step aside?
Exactly. There are two different paths, but they might all end up at the same place, which is the fact that this becomes untenable for her to continuously serving, and she has to resign because of not just the pressure, but she's not in herself, her own capacity, able to fight this case. And a big question is going to be whether or not the Fed really comes out in her defense, because right now all the Fed said is like, we are going to abide by what the court decides.
You've described how awkward it might be on September 17th.
So
You might have Governor Lisa Cook still there. Stephen Myron, current CEA chair. He could be confirmed by the time we get to that.
He might be confirmed. We reported last night that Senate banking hearing is going to move quickly in terms of his hearing because they're starting it next week. His hearing, though, is going to be an absolute referendum, at least for the Democrats, on Fed independence.
That hearing is going to come up very shortly. Anne-Marie, this was fun. It's good to have you back in a seat.
Thanks.
Let's turn to the markets as we count you down to the open in about 35 minutes away. Equity futures on the S&P 500 shaping up as follows, just about unchanged as we wait for earnings from Nvidia. As we often repeat, it makes up 8% of the S&P, 10% of the Nasdaq 100, and the enthusiasm across the whole sector and beyond will be shaped by that one name alone later on this afternoon. In the bond market, a few things to look out for. The move at the front end compared to the move at the long end. At the very front end of the curve, yields are lower by 3 basis points. At the long end, higher by 3 basis points. 495 and climbing as we approach that line in the sand and get closer to 5%. From New York City, thank you for choosing Bloomberg TV.
Right, okay, ready?
David, what initially sparked your interest in this topic of longevity?
15 years ago, I turned 60, and I began to wonder how much longer I'm likely to live and what I could do to extend my life. On longevity, I talk with the leading experts in science and medicine to educate people about how they might be able to change their conduct so that they can live a happier and healthier life. I'm David Rubenstein. Join me on a 4-part journey as I explore the great quest for longevity. Only on Bloomberg. Do you know what to tell people about what the tariffs are going to do on the United States economy and the investment environment, or is it not clear yet?
If you look at the impact of the tariffs, they were much more significant and broad than I think the market expected. Looks closer to 19% on balance versus 2 and change last year. So effectively, it's a 20% increase on 10% of household goods that are imported into this country.
And do you think it's going to lead to a recession?
Well, we think that it's going to impact both inflation and the economic growth scenario. So we were coming into yesterday expecting the real economy to grow at 2%. And inflation to be closer to 2.8%. If you just go through the math, it would suggest there's probably 1 to 2 points upward increase on inflation and a similar amount on economic growth. So it could put us in a position where we're teetering.
So the tariffs will likely depress the GDP growth rate and increase inflation. So what's the advantage of tariffs?
From our standpoint, we have a hard time seeing the benefits of tariffs. They do tend to be inflationary in the short term. As you're pointing out, the longer term impact on economies is probably the greater downside.
Bloomberg Screen Time is back this fall for year 3. We're bringing together the biggest names in business and pop culture, like Netflix co-CEO Greg Peters, Instagram boss Adam Mosseri, and Los Angeles royalty Will Obey. We're going to talk about how sports is eating entertainment, check in on the state of the movie business, and get an update on LA after the fires from Rick Caruso and Irving Azoff. You should expect newsy interviews from industry leaders, meaningful business networking, and of course, great food. We'll feature some of the best chefs and food trucks from my hometown of Los Angeles. Tickets are available now, and you should head to bloomberglive.com/screentime for details. I'll see you in Los Angeles, October 8th and 9th.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Matt Miller, the Circuit de la Sarthe in Le Mans, and this is Bloomberg. It's finally here. Nvidia after the bell, 30 minutes until the start of trading. I'm Matt Miller.
And I'm Katie Greifeld. Bloomberg Open Interest starts right now.
Coming up, Wall Street gears up for Nvidia. The world's most valuable company takes the earnings spotlight after the bell. And President Trump imposes a crushing 50% tariff on Indian goods while Europe seeks to remove all tariffs on U.S. industrial goods this week. Plus, another full bag of retail results, back-to-school demand, and celebrity partnerships helping boost the bottom line. But Katie, there is one stock to watch today.
Only one stock to watch today. You guessed it. It's NVIDIA. NVIDIA priced to move 6% in either direction after earnings today. That's according to a look at the option market. Now, that is the lowest implied move in about 2 years as traders focus on the staying power of the AI boom. And of course, China sales have taken on new levels of complexity, with 15% of revenue for chips sold in China going to the U.S. government. You see shares not moving around too much right now, Matt. We know that the main event is after the close.
Yeah, absolutely looking forward to Romaine and crew breaking those numbers. We're also watching shares of the other Mag 7 stocks. Meta, Microsoft, Alphabet, and Amazon are the big four. They account for 40% of NVIDIA's revenue. You can see there's pretty little change here. I mean, up 0.4, down 0.3, but these are the stocks along with NVIDIA that really move the market. These four stocks make up 15% of the S&P 500's total market weighting.
All right, for more on NVIDIA earnings, I'm pleased to say we're joined now by Bloomberg Tech co-host Caroline Hyde and Mandeep Singh. He is global head of tech research for Bloomberg Intelligence. So important that we decided to do a roundtable. So, Caroline, let me start with you, obviously. I can't imagine that you'll be talking about anything else on Bloomberg Tech today. What is the expectation heading into these results? You take a look at the options market. 6% isn't nothing, but it's certainly not the fireworks in the past.
But it's potential big swings and big market impact when you've got a $4.4 trillion company and the most valuable. And as you've just been insinuating, it will affect a lot of other companies. But there's also a big divergence in the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows when you look at analyst expectations for revenue. And Mandeep can speak to what his expectations are. But when you're looking across the board, ironically, the only sell rating on NVIDIA is actually the highest expectation for the revenue number, in excess of $50 billion. I'm talking about $52 billion are expected over at Seaport. But then the lowest is about $15 billion under that. And the real discrepancy here is whether you're factoring in the Chinese revenues or not, whether you're seeing any H20 sales whatsoever, or whether you're thinking that's off the table for now. What do we hear in terms of Chinese actual demand? I think a really interesting tell today was some earnings we got out of China. Cabricon is one of a key AI accelerator developer over in China. They're against SMIC and the like, and Huawei, and they've seen incredible growth in their market cap and their revenues. So China's trying to pull away from the likes of NVIDIA. What is the longer-term perception of Jensen on that? That's going to be a big volatility gauge. But actually, a lot of analysts and investors I speak to say, in the longer term, it doesn't matter. This is a supply issue. This is not a demand issue.
How important, Mandeep, are China sales to this final number today? And, you know, every time China comes out and tells its companies not to buy the H20 chips, we act like it's a new story. But they've been saying this all year long, right? They issued a directive, I think in March, that they didn't want their companies buying NVIDIA's H20 chips. So are they going to have bought them this quarter?
So when NVIDIA reported last time, they actually took an $8 billion write-down for this quarter. The reason why the estimates are somewhat lower, 45 to 46 billion for this quarter, is because they took an $8 billion write-down on H20s. So clearly, the estimates have been de-risked from a China exposure standpoint. With that being said, if NVIDIA is able to sell back to China, whether it's the new Blackwell B30s or some other version, then that means there's upside to 3Q. And that is where, you know, the bogey that at least the consensus numbers are there. Probably, I would say it should be 2 to 3 billion higher than what the consensus is for next quarter, which is around 53 billion.
How do you approach the question of what Chinese sales will look like, though? I mean, you take a look at our Bloomberg News reporting. There's a $15 billion range for third quarter revenue projections. You have the likes of Susquehanna saying that they're refusing to put sales of H20 chips into their models. That seems hard to do, but at the same time, it's just hard to know here.
So if you're in NVIDIA right now and you don't have a lot of visibility with the Chinese customers, and you have limited capacity with TSMC to make those chips, you're probably not going to make H20s or B30s. You're going to make other chips that the sovereigns can buy. And so from that perspective, actually, it could be a positive for the gross margins if you're not selling H20s or B30s. So I think if NVIDIA is planning, you know, for the next 3-4 quarters, given the uncertainty, they'll try to downplay the China exposure and focus more on the sovereigns. And really, I do think that should help the margins.
What about the big four that you and Ed cover on Bloomberg Tech so closely, right? They make up a huge chunk of NVIDIA's revenue, these hyperscalers on the West Coast, and they've all announced their CapEx already. So we essentially know, like, is that spending baked into today's number? And what's the risk that they're spending too much and they won't be spending more in the future?
It's interesting. We had Beth Kidrig on the show yesterday, IO Fund, and she's actually ahead of many seen what the overall appetite for data center spend and capital expenditure is going to be. She's saying, look, we're only going up and to the right. She foresees NVIDIA becoming a $6 trillion company on the back of just the Blackwell architecture. Rubin, she's seeing like a $10 trillion company because of the sheer size of the capital expenditure that is going to keep on coming from hyperscalers, but then others around as well. This is going to spread out, as you say, sovereigns become a big area of demand. And so I think it's more about what's forecast and what's baked in there. We kind of had a tell. And actually, we saw Alphabet and many others raise their capital expenditure forecasts. So people, particularly analysts, at least 9 of them last week, upgraded their forecasts for NVIDIA. People are getting more and more excited about what the numbers they're going to post.
But the risk is, I think one risk is indigestion, right? I mean, if they bite off more than they can chew this year, then next year that will slow down a little bit, right? We've seen overinvestment in the past when you were laying fiber for the internet in 1999 and 2000.
On that point, so this year, the CapEx from the hyperscalers is growing north of 50%, and NVIDIA's revenue is growing almost 60% data center side. Next year, Meta and all the others have said it's going to be over $100 billion in CapEx. So for Meta, it translates to over 30% growth. For Alphabet and Microsoft, anything over $100 billion could mean 10 to 15% growth, or it could be higher, but we don't know exactly what it's going to be. So it really matters whether all the hyperscalers in aggregate grow their CapEx 25 to 30%, or the aggregate number is below 20%, and that will have a bearing on NVIDIA's growth for next year.
And I mean, Mandy's been so articulate about the issue of whether it's all about training your models or whether it's moved to inference, and Jensen's spoken a lot about that. But Matt, to your point, if you go into the EM function for NVIDIA on the Bloomberg terminal, we are forecasting a significant slowdown in revenue growth. Look, this was a company that was growing revenues more than 250% last year. We're now expecting for the full year about 56%. Then it slows down to about 28%. Then it slows down to about 15%. These are gargantuan numbers, but they are going to start slowing in the pace of absolute growth.
All right, yeah, and we'll see, of course, how investors digest that. It is interesting that you take a look at NVIDIA's valuations, and it's cheaper, less expensive than it has been, but still some eye-watering levels there. Great roundtable to set us up. That is Caroline Hyde of Bloomberg Tech. You can catch her at 11 a.m. Eastern. And, of course, Mandeep Singh of Bloomberg Intelligence. I imagine you'll see these two faces all over Bloomberg Television today. But let's get to what else is going on in the market. And believe it or not, there's things other than NVIDIA reporting today. We start with Kohl's boosting its sales outlook for the year as turnaround efforts gain a little bit of traction. You can see shares skyrocketing higher, up nearly 21% pre-market. This is a stock that has a pretty hefty short interest, though, Matt.
Yeah, and we're going to be following all of these a little bit later on the program. We're going to talk to Mary Ross Gilbert from Bloomberg Intelligence about all of these retailers. PVH is a company that owns Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger. It's raised its outlook thanks to celebrity partnerships and collaborations with the F1 film, which most of our team went to.
Yeah, I know that you were among them.
Yeah, you were not. Did you see, by the way, F1 eventually?
Do you think that I did?
Of course
no,
not.
I didn't. But it got rave reviews from the open interest team.
It wasn't that good.
Let's quickly talk about J.M. Smucker falling after sales decreased for coffee, dog snacks, and sweet baked goods, and also fruit spreads. That's a lot of bad news. Shares down about
coffee, dog snacks.
Coffee, dog
coffee,
snacks.
comma,
dog snacks. They also have cat food as well. I believe
have you played? What is it called? Taco Cat Go Cheese Pizza?
You know, I haven't.
It's a fantastic card game. I recommend you check it out.
Interesting.
Especially fun if you're under the age of like 9.
No.
Let's check on what's going on with futures this morning. Not a lot, right? Ahead of NVIDIA earnings after the bell. I didn't see much movement last time I checked. and I don't see much movement now.
No, but you know everything will change after the close today. It's really the cash session today that's the boring part. It's everything after the market that happens. And we'll see. I mean, NVIDIA has an 8% weighting in the S&P 500, so we'll have to see what happens in the after-hours session. The Nasdaq 100 also in a holding pattern, down about 0.1%. The Russell 2000, the small caps, of course, really being the most volatile area of the market, the pre-market, that is. The Russell 2000 off by about 0.4%, Matt.
All right, coming up, the EU looks set to propose cutting its tariffs on the U.S. to meet President Trump's demands and get its flat 15% rate. We'll give you your global trade update next. This is Bloomberg Open Interest.
Technology is embedded in every aspect of our lives.
And laying the foundation for the future.
From finance to defense, AI to entertainment.
And from the road to the stars. Bloomberg brings you the latest stories of the people and companies pushing the tech sector to new frontiers.
And the politics that shape global tech markets.
I'm Caroline Hyde in New York.
And I'm Ed Ludlow in San Francisco.
Watch Bloomberg Tech every weekday.
Only on Bloomberg Television.
AI is definitely in the center of it, and we're looking for how do we spend time and which industries do you invest in. Investors becoming more and more digital or AI enabled that actually adds value to economic growth. And this, we think could be time because you have a strong hardware power and you have a strong software power as we see, and it's accelerating significantly. But a very important another element, which is changes in demographics. More AI-enabled softwares and applications may improve the people's lives and actually increase productivity in times where demographics are decreasing everywhere around the world. So this, I would say, is a major theme. So digitalization and AI-related technologies, and we think of it technology, but in reality, a lot of the businesses coming up and claiming to be technologies that are actually cannibalizing a lot of traditional businesses.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute economic news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Michael McKee in Victor, Idaho, and this is Bloomberg.
Astonishing day for U.S. technology.
Shaping the region's technology ecosystem.
Asia's biggest tech news and innovation.
Let's get to high interest now. Look at what's making headlines around the world. The gold mining giant Newmont is studying plans to slash costs that may lead to deep job cuts. This follows its $15 billion acquisition of Newcrest Mining in 2023. Newmont has told managers it wants to be closer in line with its lowest cost peers. That would mean lowering costs by 20%. You can see shares in Newmont Mining down 0.4% in the pre-market. Cracker Barrel Old Country Store said it is getting rid of that new logo that no one liked and prompted a huge slump in its share price. Cracker Barrel had faced backlash on social media and from the President of the United States of America after it changed its vintage logo by removing an image of a man leaning against a barrel while making the lettering more modern. In a statement, the company said, "Our old-timer will remain." It was pushed yesterday by Donald Trump on Truth Social. Williams-Sonoma is out with earnings. The kitchen and home goods retailer is boosting its full-year forecast. The company is keeping a close eye on tariffs. President Trump said he's thinking about putting tariffs on furniture, and that would impact some Williams-Sonoma brands like West Elm and Pottery Barn. So Williams-Sonoma shares up 1 2/3%, Katie.
All right, keeping a close eye on tariffs. That's what we're doing, too, because sources tell Bloomberg that the EU will propose removing U.S. tariffs on industrial goods this week. Let's get more detail from Bloomberg's Brendan Murray, who leads our global trade coverage. So potentially removing tariffs on U.S. industrial goods, also potentially giving preferential tariff rates on certain seafood and agricultural goods as well. Brendan, what is the calculus here? What does the EU hope to get in return?
Well, this is all part of the framework that the U.S. and the EU agreed to a week or two ago. They're trying to put this in place as soon as they possibly can in Brussels because, as President Trump showed earlier this week, he can throw something like his opposition to the digital regulation and taxation that goes on in Europe. He can throw that into the discussion. So they're trying to push this through the legislative process to get it sort of ratified, to follow through on what they promised the U.S. that they would do. In return, the U.S. will lower the auto tariffs on European exports to the U.S. from 27.5% down to 15%. So the Europeans really think that time is the clock is ticking against them here, and that they need to do this quickly so that they can get some follow through from the U.S. on what's been agreed to in this trade agreement.
Brendan, it's interesting to see the EU concede on tariffs on industrial goods, and yet they push back so hard on these digital tariffs that the president is so unhappy about. He's called them unfair. He's been railing against them for quite a long time. How do they reconcile those two things? And do they face a backlash over the digital stuff?
Well, they drew a red line around the digital services regulation and said that that's our sovereign right to regulate these industries. And effectively, we're talking about Google and Meta and Amazon and the big U.S. e-commerce and social media companies. That the Europeans said, look, we're not going to touch that. And when they got that issue that it wasn't addressed in the framework agreement, they took that as a victory, but President Trump is still pushing against that. So I think what it suggests is these negotiations are never really going to end in the near term, that President Trump will raise this stuff with the Europeans or with the Koreans or the Japanese. These contentious issues are really never going to go away, and he's going to pull them out when he feels like he can use them as leverage.
But still signs of progress when it comes to the EU-U.S. relationship. A different story unfolding when it comes to our relationship, the U.S. relationship with India, because as of 12:01 a.m. Washington time, there's a 50% tariff on Indian goods here. Brendan, what do we know so far?
I like to work fast, and switching.
Banyak alasan buat lampaui batasan bareng Valorant. Buat si Abe yang cuma punya satu teman komplek ini.
엔터프라이즈에서 120비트를 또 추매했다고 합니다.
Tunjangan kehormatan kan, berarti kehormatannya pakai tunjangan dong ya. Berarti kita nggak.
Halo guys, David. Halo guys.
Alhamdulillah gue mau ucapin selamat terlepas dari riba, bro. Ya.
Alhamdulillah.
Di video
Baksonya mau campur. Tambah lagi satu porsi. Bang, tambah lagi. Baksonya mau campur. Tambah lagi satu porsi. Bang, tambah lagi seporsi lagi, Bang. Tambah lagi. Nang, tambah satu porsi lagi, Bang. Tambah lagi. Insya Allah terakhir, insya Allah ini terakhir. Ini udah berapa ya? 8 ya?
Nah,
Kita udah sampai di mie bakso Mang Oman. Ini jual apa aja nih, Mang?
Ini bakso, Pak.
Oke, baksonya ada apa aja nih?
Ada bihun, ada kue tiaw, ada mie, Pak.
Oh, oke. Saya boleh kue tiaw deh satu deh. Satu porsinya berapa?
15.000.
15.000.
Iya.
Satu porsi dulu deh.
Mau yamin apa kuah?
Yamin tuh kering ya?
Iya.
Oh, yamin deh. Boleh yamin satu. Apa?
Kue tiaw apa bihun?
Kue tiaw deh.
Tiaw aja.
Kue tiawnya menarik. Pesan baksonya aja bisa?
Bisa.
Ini jualan dari berapa lama?
Saya
Mang Oman?
dari 91 jualan.
Ini sehari bisa habis berapa porsi?
Sehari ya paling kalau Sabtu Minggu ya 200 porsi.
200 porsi. Gokil. Tapi ini baru buka banget ya,
Ya,
Mang ya?
baru buka saya.
Dari jam berapa?
Dari jam 10 pagi
Sampai
jam 5.
Oke. Oh, ini kayaknya makan siang nanti rame banget ya?
Insya Allah.
Insya Allah, bekas selalu. Oh, ini bisa bayar pakai QRIS guys. Nih, bisa pakai QRIS nih. Oke.
Kuahnya mau dipisah ini.
Kuahnya dipisah boleh deh.
Jadi biar ada rasa semua.
Ah, boleh. Kuahnya dikit aja tapi.
Iya.
Jadi baksonya di sini ya?
Iya, betul. Baksonya mau campur.
Ada apa aja tuh?
Ini suratnya.
Oh, surat.
Iya.
Boleh campur deh. Sama bakso halus ya?
Iya.
Oke. Oh sambalnya pakai sambal hijau,
Iya,
siap.
orang hijau ganti. Biasa
Oke.
merah, orang pengen yang hijau aja dulu.
Oh, oke.
Silakan.
Sip. Makan kali ini ditemenin sama Cimori UHT Milk yang Mary Biscuit guys. Tapi nanti kita minum ya, kita makan dulu. Oke nih guys, ini kayak bakso dan mie ayam di Sumatera nih, pakai cabai hijau. Tapi kata mamangnya tadi kadang pakai merah, kadang hijau. Tapi biasanya merah. Tapi kali ini kebetulan hijau, pas lah. Oke, ini kita aduk dulu ya. Mantap. Ini ada bawang goreng, ada seledri, dan udah dapat ini 15.000 sama bakso dan tiaunya. Dan kalau kalian pengen ini bisa digabung ya. Tapi kita coba dipisah dulu. Gue pengen cobain dulu nih si kue tiaunya. Oke. Ini guys, sopan pertama buat kalian. Oh, terlupa. Sebelum makan kita baca doa. Baca doa dimulai. Amin. Cobain dulu ya guys ya. Ini tuh udah cukup viral ya. Gue udah sering lihat ini nih. Ini dikasih kecap. Soalnya ini yamin. Bismillah. Wah, bawang gorengnya masih krenyes-krenyes, gurih, dan manisnya juga pas, tidak terlalu berlebihan, dan pedes guys. Pedes dari sambal hijaunya. Wah, ini sih comfort food banget sih. Kue tiaw juga kenyal. Aku suka sih. Sekarang kita coba baksonya guys. Ini ada bakso halus dan bakso. Wah, pedes juga ya. Bakso urat. Bismillah. Ini tipikal broth yang clear ya, tipikal kuah yang clear. Terus tadi dikasih kecap asin kayaknya, jadi dia agak coklat-coklat warnanya. Dan bawang gorengnya masih krenyes-krenyes. Coba nih guys, bakso halusnya dulu nih. Oke, kenyal. Kenyal banget. Tapi
在购物车，然后那些3290这个。
di modelnya Celios, kita punya berapa banyak waktu sampai titik terendahnya?
2026 kuartal kedua.
Start lagi dong. Iya. Iya. Celios sudah sempat melakukan estimasi kah?
Ya.
Berapa sebenarnya angka pertumbuhan ekonomi di kuartal 2 Indonesia kemarin tuh versi Celios?
Ya, versi kita bansos. Argumentasi dari pemerintah nih.
Iya.
Ada bansos dan stimulus. Kalau dicek, belanja pemerintah kan tetap negatif. Pertumbuhannya tetap minus 0,33% secara tahunan. Staf kita ya di Celios waktu itu ada salah satu acara gitu, webinar, salah satu anggota DPR ya langsung statement. Padahal nggak ngebahas soal ini ya, data BPS. Ngebahas soal anggaran. Tapi langsung statementnya adalah, kita nggak suka apa yang dilakukan oleh Celios gitu.
Waduh.
Jadi menurut kita sih,
siapa yang menurut Mas Bima yang layak di reshuffle dari kabinet kali ini?
saya sih satu tim aja. Jadi satu tim ekonomi itu diganti semua.
Halo, kembali lagi di Anfield.